Hello, welcome to the next part of this lesson where we're going to look at chapter 16 of Can You See Me with kind permission from Scholastic. So chapter 16, let's go. It's cold on top of the garden shed, but Tally doesn't care. Slowly making sure that her footing is secure, she lies back against the roof and stares up at the stars. Mum and Dad think she's in bed, but there's no way that she could sleep, not after everything that has happened this evening. The sky is dark, but it isn't black like everyone thinks. It's a dark indigo blue, and Tally stares into the distance until the stars become blurry and the sky seems like it's pushing down on the top of her like a very heavy blanket. The sleepover might just about have been saved if she'd had a special weighted blanket with her, and not the slippery shiny sleeping bag that Mum made her take. She'd struggled her way through supper, picking bits of pineapple off a slice of pizza and hiding them under a pile of chips so that she could just eat the ham and the cheesy base. Then she went upstairs and sat on Layla's bed and watched a film that Lucy said would be great, but that clearly stated at the start that it was only suitable for viewers who were aged 18. When Tally questioned whether they should choose something else, everyone had laughed. And then Lucy asked her if she was scared, and so she pretended it was all fine. Even though the part where the clown peered out from the drainage hole and made a creepy smile, it made her head swirl in a horrible way. She'd even kept going when the film finally ended and they went to the bathroom to clean their teeth, and Layla's big brother was lying in wait for them behind the bathroom door. He jumped out as they walked in, and Lucy and Layla screamed so loudly that Tally's ears were ringing for ages afterwards. Aisha started crying, which made Tally feel very strange and a bit embarrassed and awkward. She wanted to cry too, but there's no way that she could ever do that in front of her friends, and so she pushed the feelings deep down and tried to think about happy things like Rupert and the top of her garden shed. When they'd eventually calmed down and Layla's mum had stormed upstairs and shouted at her brother and then told them all off for watching an unsuitable film, which was quite completely unfair because Tally didn't even want to watch it in the first place, they settled into their sleeping bags, and Tally saw that they all had something in their hands. The other girls were snuggling up with their favourite soft toys. Lucy had a teddy bear, Aisha had a battered old penguin that she said she'd got when she was in hospital, and Layla had a whole load of them on her bed. Not as many as Tally had on her bed at home, but still quite a lot. And that was when it all went wrong. So wrong that Tally couldn't stop it. She had told Mum that she didn't want to bring a cuddly toy because she was sure that it would be breaking one of the rules of the sleepover, but they all had something to cuddle and she had nobody, and that wasn't okay. Layla had turned off the light and the rest of them started talking about horrible Luke and who might fancy Layla and whether Aisha was brave enough to ask out some boy in their drama class. But Tally couldn't listen to a single thing they said. All she could think about was the fact that Billy was lying on her bed at home and she was lying on the floor of Layla's bedroom, and the distance between them was further than she could bear to contemplate. She'd wriggled uncomfortably, feeling her feet getting tangled up and hot at the end of her sleeping bag. And the pillows smelt funny, and the girls' voices were high-pitched and shrill. But even so, she could still hear the sounds coming from the television downstairs, and there's no way she could go to sleep with all this noise going on. She'd whispered it too quietly the first time, and nobody'd heard her. They were too busy giggling about whether it was more romantic to go to McDonald's or Burger King on a first date. So she said it a bit louder, but they still weren't listening. Which meant that the third time it came out a bit like a shout, and that made everyone stop talking straight away. Layla had tried to persuade her to stay. She told Tally that sleepover would be ruined if she wasn't there with them. All Tally could hear was the sound of Lucy's words from earlier, telling her that they wanted to make her look normal. Then Layla started to cry, saying that her mum would be really mad at her if Tally went home and would blame her because of the scary film, but the only noise in Tally's head was Aisha's voice squealing about her new look. Tally didn't want a new look. She liked her old look. Layla was right. Her mum was cross. She tried to get Tally to stay too, but Tally kept on trying to stuff her sleeping bag inside the ridiculously tiny sack that it was supposed to go into. And when she failed, she picked it up in one hand and the rucksack in the other and marched downstairs, the sleeping bag trailing behind her. By the time Mum arrived, she was sitting outside on the front doorstep, with Layla's mum fussing around her and Layla's dad muttering about how all the heat was going straight out of an open door. But now she's home, and the instant that she heard Mum and Dad's bedroom door close, she grabbed Billy and headed out to the garden. Her face had been washed clean by Mum, although all the tears that she cried in the car did most of the job for her. She looks like her, she feels like her, and up here on the garden shed she can breathe properly for the first time all day. Date: Sunday the 12th of October. Situation: sleepover from hell. Anxiety rating: 10. Absolutely 10. Hi, Tally again with yet another nightmare story. I think this one's the worst. Last night I had one of the worst nights of my life ever. Even sitting up on top of the garden shed didn't make me feel happy like it usually does. He said I just felt like I was missing out on everything. I bet Layla and everyone had the time of their lives without me. I keep trying to forget about it, but then I have to flashback of everyone crowding around me like a swarm of angry wasps, grinning in my face, pulling at my hair and smothering my face in thick makeup. The thought makes me so stressed I have to pace around and around my bedroom to try and calm myself down. Why do I get so anxious and stressed about stuff that other people wouldn't care about? I know it's just how I am. I just have a different way of seeing and feeling the world. I'm like a fly. I view the world through my lenses, and if someone approaches me without caution, I take off, and just like when flies, people don't always feel empathy for me. Which is ironic when people like to think I'm the one without empathy. Tally's autism facts. Anxiety. Pro: I'm hypersensitive to my surroundings, and that makes me want to protect myself from danger because I can sense it more than other people might. This means I'll probably live longer. I find this quite funny because some people seem desperate to prevent autism, like it's a disease, but actually I think we're outperforming the neurotypical people. That's probably why they're always trying to cure us. Dad says this would be a great film plot. Neurotypical people are people who think and behave in the way that the world thinks is normal, by the way. Sometimes they even think that their way of being is the only right way, which is ridiculous when you think about it. I do a lot of thinking, as you can probably tell. And anyway, most autistic people I know wouldn't want to be autistic. It's part of what makes us us. Who we are, even if it is really, really hard sometimes. Con of anxiety. Anxiety? Duh. Ugh, fine, I'll explain. Well, with anxiety, you always think immediately of the worst case scenario, and everything's an emergency. For example, my mum went out shopping and told me that she was going to be an hour, and she was 7 whole minutes over an hour. 7! I was convinced she'd been kidnapped, and I cried for ages. So what I'm trying to say is that I overthink a lot of things. It feels like being trapped in a crazy, persuasive brain that makes me believe incorrect and extreme thoughts. Okay, there's now some transition activities for you to have a go at. I hope you enjoy them, and I'll see you again soon.